Hi, and welcome back to this special two-part episode of The Liberty Show hosted by Kevin Fortune, focusing on police brutality in America and the murder of George Floyd. We're going to get back into it, starting with Tim Smith, one of our regulars, who has a perspective on how we can put our liberty into action in this situation.
If I may, if a country occupies a group of folks long enough, those people are either going to acknowledge that they're being occupied and suck it up, or those people are going to band together and there's going to be violence. We saw that with the Vietnam conflict. What we're seeing now is the folks that have been colonized, Black people, and if we look at this right, Black folks are colonized. I like the saying, we never left the plantation, they only moved us to a different spot on the plantation. If you look at how the police the Black community as a whole, that's an occupied force. Police officers, whether they're Black or white, and let's be honest about this, Black police officers, once they become a cop, they forget that they're Black, they become blue. And this occupying force, the police have their own flag. And that flag demonstrates to us in the Black community that we're being occupied. Am I for individuals looting private businesses? Well, I would say on last week, I'm totally against it. But on today, I see it as an opportunity for us to strike back. And by striking back, I mean using our violence as leverage to actually create a better country for us. And to the earlier speaker's point about we need to get rid of Trump, I say we keep Trump in office. And the reason why I say we keep Trump in office is because we've been, Black folks, for far too long voting for these presidents and other elected officials who don't give a crap about us. Now the Democrats put forth Biden. Biden is the architect of the criminal act, the Clinton criminal law bill, which is responsible for locking up our Black brothers, responsible for locking up our Black fathers, our Black uncles, our Black mothers, and our Black daughters. If that's who you want me to vote for, you need to get the hell on out of here. I want to vote for the snake that I can see. That way I can be prepared when it strikes. And that's where Black folks need to get to the point where we're tired of voting and supporting these people who don't give a crap about us. Biden doesn't give a crap about us. The Democratic Party hasn't done jack shit for us in over 40 years. Excuse my language. But I'm tired of that being our go-to factor, our go-to that we're going to run to the Democrats. Hell no. Give me an individual that's going to stand up for my liberty, or give me the snake that I can see.
Tim, that's why you get the big bucks. I'm going to make a quick comment, then we're going to go to Kevin Wilson, have something to say up in New York. But you guys, that's something too that really hurt me last night, and I'm trying not to cry. Good thing we're not on video. Now, I totally agree with voting, exercising your right, but I agree with Tim. We voted so long, especially some of these Black leaders. I looked at the mayor last night criticizing her young Black men. But see, it's easy for them to criticize. They're riding around in limousines. They have bulletproof vests on. They have bodyguards. But, they're not a Black female with 6 kids in a project, a bankhead in Atlanta trying to raise kids. They're not walking in the bluff at night by themselves getting raped or molested. It's really, it's just sickening to me. It's easy for some of these bougie, high society Black folk that live out in Alpharetta and gated communities to say what these people down there who don't even have shoes or food, or who don't have adequate education, who don't have a father because this fake drug war has put them in prison. It's easy to make these judgment calls. And that really bothers me. We got to be careful who we vote for, because I'm not voting for no one just because they Black. And, oh my God, we need to vote for some people that are going to put in, I agree with Miss Charlie, put some stuff into action with solutions. I'm so sick of press conferences and speeches and tweets and Facebook messages. When are they going to get off their ASS and get out in the community and really make a difference? I'm sorry, but okay, Kevin Wilson up in New York, you've got something to say.
everything that's coming from these speakers is incredible. Tim, what you had to say was really powerful. So my solutions I put out in the chat are, obviously, number one is when a police officer abuses his or her power and murders someone, they need to go to jail immediately. That's number one. That's obvious, but we don't want it to get to that point, right? So number two, I mentioned in chat, qualified immunity, ending that, and requiring officers to get their own insurance. Qualified immunity basically says that if an officer is doing something in the course of their duty, they have certain protections from civil suits and other liability, that they are not able to be held liable for hurting someone in the course of doing their job. So that needs to end, number one. Number two, the insurance thing. Doctors are required to have their own insurance, individual insurance plans. What happens right now is police officers in a lot of towns, they get kind of a blanket insurance plan. So when an officer does do something, when they hurt someone, when they kill someone on the job, it's a blanket insurance plan for the entire police force. If officers had to have individual insurance, do you think insurance companies would want to cover these officers if they have several use of force incidents where it seems like they may be abusing their power? No, either their premiums are going to go way up, or they're not going to get covered at all. And if they can't get covered, then they shouldn't be allowed on the job. There's a quasi-private solution to this in those insurance premiums.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Guys, this is such a good show. You're still on the Liberty Show with Kevin Fortune, and this tonight's podcast is called A Call to Action, and we're thinking and being in memory of George Floyd, who was senselessly murdered at the hands of the state, at the hands of government officials that get paid with his tax dollars. What do you think of that? You pay taxes to a person to murder you. You hire your own hitman. But is that awful or what? So let's, Mr. Tevin Goss, one of my favorite people. We've been missing him. I don't know, last time I think he was a Playboy over in Hawaii or Paris or something. But Tevin Goss, you're on the Liberty Show.
Hey, Kevin, stop patronizing me. All right, so I just want to really say the points that were made by the various voices in our conversation, everything was really palpable, and everyone made some excellent points. I mean, I can only add, what we're seeing is not new. This is just something in the long saga of our history as a country. African Americans came here as chattel slaves in 1619. Speed that all the way up to today. And so the only thing that I really can say is, yes, we do have to take the necessary actions to hold this country accountable. We have to be committed in this fight for the long haul, like we've seen with the leaders of old, like Dr. King, like Malcolm X, like Claude McKay, and all the other individuals that were outspoken against these atrocities. Me personally, I believe that we're not going to get all the varied results that we want trying to ask the system. My whole thing is go outside of the United States. And this was something that I do believe that Malcolm X was trying to do. We need to build a case and bring it before, I don't know, the United Nations, the committee, to say, this is, enough is enough. This is a genocidal campaign against people of color. If we could sit in the trials of Nuremberg after the Second World War and be a part of that trial to condemn the Nazis, but not condemn the domestic terrorism, what the KKK was doing, that's hypocrisy. We can go to various nations. We can talk about dictators in Iran and Iraq, but what about the dictator that we have in the office right now? So my whole thing is, like I said, as a lot of people have pointed out, we do have to take action. We do have to have a strategy, as what we've seen within our history, to accomplish our goals. And, with this rioting, like Dr. King said, riots are they're situations from those who are unheard. And we've been unheard, we've been silenced, we've been exploited for so many years. So like I said before, I just hope that this is something, and we're dealing with we're dealing with issues on top of issues, racism. We're dealing with also this disease that is really taking people. We have the highest amount of deaths due to COVID-19, and then we have to deal with this on top of that.
Well, and that's good. I want to pick it because, once again, we're dealing with all of this, and we're supposed to just take it. We shouldn't lose. We shouldn't be angry. We shouldn't be upset. Just take it. And that's part of the problem, that we've been taking it for 400 years. We took slavery. We took stealing our land. We took slavery. We took them selling our kids, raping our women. We took Jim Crow. We're taking now imprisoning black males. We're taking, poverty. We're taking injustice. And then when we rise up, it's wrong. Now the government's been rising up, bombing people, murdering people, stealing our tax dollars for years. And that's okay.
And we've seen this. I don't want to interject, but we've seen these issues, with rioting and violence, as people pointed out. We've seen this in the past. Was the National Guard called in on Rosewood? Were they called in on Tulsa, Oklahoma? But when these individuals, these young people are upset in Minneapolis, we have to call in the National Guard. So when it's another person of other, we have to do what we need to do to protect property. But when it's our people, the instigators and the aggressors of all of these atrocities, we don't really have any. We can't find any type of solutions. I think that this is also a call for those who are our allies to find the solutions, to also hold their white counterparts accountable. I know that it's great that they're a part of our causes. But I do believe solely that the solution will happen internally. Only white people can hold other white people accountable.
Interesting. We've got Amanda. Would you like to say something, then followed by Mr. Jared? Amanda, you're on the Liberty Show.
Hello. My name is Amanda. I'm from Washington State. I'm just outside of Seattle. And I went to the George Floyd Memorial yesterday in Bellingham. It just felt right to go and experience it and due to all of what's happening. I think I'm just really happy to have heard what Tevin said. I went to school with him, and it's always just really a pleasure to hear what he has to say, and everyone's points have been really kind of awesome to listen to. I, however, am very much for the protests, and I think the looting is all justified in on account of how much oppression people of color and Black people have experienced. It's all just needing to come to light on how much we are still treating people of color and Black people so poorly in this country, and how it's so integrated in the police systems, in the authoritative systems we have. And it's I think it needs to happen. I think we need more education. We don't have any education whatsoever about the struggle of our brothers and sisters. We don't have, everything is still, as far as I've seen as a white person, you don't experience anything until you have friends and you talk to people, or you go out and you will never understand it as a white person. But it's just so disheartening when you hear stories, and it's so saddening. It's you want to see them lifted up. I wish there was just much more education, much more laws being passed to eradicate this. We're still fighting, and we're continuously fighting. And I have family members, as I try to be that voice in my family. And when I see the systematic racism still arise in my family, and I try to say something, and I'm fought back with, because they don't either understand or want to understand. It's frustrating because you want to see that growth in your own home. You want to be that change, and it starts. It really does start here in your own home. It starts with that conversation with your own family. I think everyone needs to be an ally and doesn't need to back up the police because they were born of oppressing people of color, and the whole system is heavily corrupt. So yeah, I think I wasn't able to go to the rally that's happening in Seattle today because it would have been hard for me to make it back here because it's a 3-hour difference. However, there were some word that they were already tear gassing and doing some arrests to people downtown, unfortunately. But I'm so for the looting and all this stuff. It needs to happen. People, if they're not being killed, they're being arrested. They're still being harassed, and it happens to people every single day. And it needs to happen. And it's just going to be building and building and building until we can really get to the point of making actual changes. And I think it needs to go back to the basic building blocks of education and changing the authorities that are in power because they're all heavily corrupt. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now let's go to Mr. Jared, our producer, director, technical director, editor, audio specialist, cameraman. Mr. Jared, what do you have to say?
Hi, Kevin. I'll actually pass my spot off here to Wanda, who I see has something to add, and then I'll do my bit here.
Welcome, Wanda. You're on the Liberty Show.
Hi, how are you? I am calling from Savannah, Georgia. And I just want to say, I want to comment on all of the people who have called in to comment. Wonderful remarks that have been made tonight. And I really do believe that change can come if we actually, everybody who has made a remark, if we can put to action some of these remarks that have been made. One thing I do, as the young lady who just got off, she said something that I think is very important. I am an educator. So she was talking about education. We need to go back to our roots, basically. And there are so many things that we have, we need to basically start to find a solution. We need to start grassroots organizations out of our homes. And one thing that I want to point out that's so disappointing to me, our churches have failed us, in my humble opinion. Black people, particularly, Black people, particularly, there's a church down here in the South on every corner. I mean, and literally, I mean that literally. I don't mean that to be facetious. I mean, you can go and every mile to a church, and I mean, on Sundays, they are packed, but they have failed us miserably. The young man that called in earlier talking about some like the insurance with police. Well, I have never heard that before. And I think to educate our people, starting these grassroots organizations out of our homes and out of these churches where we are spending, God knows, giving our money to, through these, paying these tithes. And we are constantly talking about the building fund or what have you. But we're going to have to start those grassroots organizations back through those churches and educate our people on some of these things, some of the laws that we don't know anything about. Just like here again, to reiterate what the man said about the insurance. I have never even heard that about how police insurance is broken down. We need to let our people know those things. We need to start, just as Tevin, the young man, was talking about. We need to go and talk to some of our allies and talk about, put to the table what we want as demands, to make these changes and put forth so that these solutions we can start on something. Personally, for me, I work through education. And these grassroots organizations, we're going to have to start targeting certain things that we want to focus on. I focus on education. You might want to focus on healthcare. Somebody else may want, and then we start that from there. So those are some of the things that I wanted to point out. But the church has just disappointed me. I mean, it really, really has, because out of the churches where Dr. King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, I mean, all of our leaders came through that church. They started giving our people and providing our people with information starting at the church. And we don't get that anymore.
Well, thank you, Wanda. Jared, let me comment on that before you come in there. You hit the nail on the head, sister. And I grew up in church, and I'm one of those holy roller Christians, but we have been so let down. I thought of that last night. I said to myself, where is the church? Where are they to help these young people, to help these single moms? Where, we're paying all this money. And Jesus said,
is praying.
Go into the highways and the byways. We're stuck up in a building asking for money instead of giving it out. We're supposed to be the light of the world into darkness. When do we take it out into the darkness? We set all up amongst ourselves. And that is so disappointing, because the church, especially in the African-American community, has been an institution, a powerhouse. But now it's becoming a social club. And oh my goodness, you open up a can of worms, sister. But it's really something. Okay, let's go to our main man, Mr. Everything, Jared Morningstar in Madison, Wisconsin.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the show again. As always, I guess I got to be here though. But I mean, tonight's been so incredible, so cathartic. Hearing all our emotions and how much unity we have behind those. And I mean, through that, it's so empowering, and I really feel a deep grounds for being able to make something real come out of this. So. Yeah, just a quick comment on the religion side of things. People are forgetting their scripture. I mean, was it not Jesus who went into the temple with a whip and knocked around the money changers? I mean, come on. If you are worried about how some of the tactics are looking right now, like look at what Jesus was doing. He certainly had a part to play in that type of resistance as well. So yeah, I wanted to read a short piece I wrote yesterday that touches on some of these things. Hopefully, I won't take too long with this, but yeah, I just I needed to get some words out, and I'd really like to share this all with you. So yeah, the context of this is. We had our protests in the Twin Cities, which is my sort of home. I grew up in Minnesota and only left that area about a year ago. And then we had other protests recently, where, like in Michigan, where you had armed protesters storming the Capitol about the lockdown issues. So there's two situations here, and the official response from the government was very different between these two. So violent protest marked the beginning of America, and the sense of liberty against injustice still runs through our veins today. Yet liberty for whom? The sensibilities of both the privileged public and those who wield political authority will shift at a moment's notice from a deep acknowledgement of the rights of the citizenry to protest with vehemence to a rhetoric of law and order, stating firmly that the protesters must maintain peacefulness and pursue only legal means, while simultaneously utilizing state power via the police to escalate conflict, even at times when protesting remains squarely in the bounds of what is permitted by constitutional rights. These rhetorical sleight of hands, always disconnected from the specific histories leading to deep grievances fueling vicious protest, are very palatable to the average privileged American. For them, human rights are already so obviously guaranteed that situations where it seems that these rights are being denied to other citizens, it is automatically rationalized as their fault. And unless they've actively had relationships and opportunities for education on the experiences of others in this country, are they really wrong in their reasoning? If you can storm a Capitol building with heavy artillery and not face any escalation of violence, what must you conclude about a protest which does lead to escalating violence? Here, the state and its various concrete manifestations are imagined as genuinely neutral. Its actions are fully governed by the letter of the law. And likewise, the options for citizen power against state overreach are delineated. If you don't break the rules, nothing bad could happen. This is, of course, not an accurate paradigm for understanding the very off-the-cuff responses of the state to those protesters whose political goals are judged, for whatever reason, as threatening to the mythos by which the American nation defines itself and asserts its sovereignty and goodness. Where in the Constitution does it say that officers of law are above rule of law? Where in the Constitution does it say that tear gas and rubber bullets may be employed against lawful assemblies? These are not decisions stemming from a concrete legal basis, but ones which are essentially of an improvisational nature to be justified on legal bases after the fact. We must develop eyes to see such situations clearly and realize the deep precarity of such state power asserted over the citizenry. That is why I cannot condemn any of the rioting tactics on a collective level back in my home state. The contract with the state is that they guarantee such things as natural rights and justice, and in return, the populace will subscribe only to those legal means provided by the state for redressing conflict. Yet in the murder of George Floyd, we see both the state gruesomely seize the most basic right, that to life itself, from a citizen on an entirely non-judicial, arbitrary basis. And simultaneously, justice against this infraction is showing little signs of actually materializing. And this is not an isolated incident, but truly a continuation of precedent, both in the Twin Cities in particular and in America generally. Has such justice been ignored by the legal means provided by the state? So, in such a case, the citizenry has every right to assert their lawmaking power by making transparent that the contract of law and order truly is a two-way agreement. And if the state is going to desecrate this agreement, then the people will retaliate until a new, legitimately functional legal means can be instituted for upholding justice in these cases where the state has previously acted as a barrier to this transcendent value when it has worked to their benefit. Extrajudicial, state-sponsored violence has no place in a country which flies the banner land of the free. These are our neighbors, our loved ones, being callously murdered in broad daylight. There never has been an excuse for such things. Now, the people are saying they will accept no reasons and will not rest until there is legitimate redress to these grievances. Feel their anger. It is more righteous and holy than the decaying mythology of America as a bastion of freedom. This anger has the potential to purify and renew this promise to freedom, if only we allow ourselves ears to truly hear.
Well, thank you, Jared. We're pretty much at the end of our show, but we can edit out. Are there any more comments that we need?
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Some of this behavior in our families, the girl from Washington was stating, is family members have some try to change and some just stay common, is the way I like to put it. Common behavior is easy. Common is something you just dial up and you go to that's been entrenched. To actually change something, you have to be uncommon. You have to think outside the box. You have to empathize. And these cops, they constantly go back to, well, I was scared. That's the number one reason for why they pulled their gun and shot. If you're scared, go to church. Don't go to being a police officer. And I think the call to action is you absolutely have to treat these police officers just as they are treated as a citizen. If a citizen breaks a law, they are arrested. And then you're innocent until proven guilty, and you have to go through the judicial system. That man should have been arrested immediately. The 4 men should have been arrested immediately. They broke the law. They killed a man. I mean, there's nothing about the training that happened there. And I do believe, and this may not be very popular, but I think that we should pay police officers more money. And we should change everything about the way they're held accountable. And that way you get the good police officers, like you say, the 90% or however many percent they say that they're good, and 4 of them standing there killing a man. But hold them more accountable by paying them more money and making it a more desirable job to actually have good people in there to protect and serve, not to kill and imprison. And I've enjoyed it tonight. I appreciate it. And y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Trinity. Nice to have you. Anyone else?
I have a friend from California tuning in who just got back from a protest. Kylie, welcome. You're on the Liberty Show.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. So yeah, as Jared said, I just got back from one of the protests. There have been a lot in downtown LA, but I heard about one happening pretty close to my home, kind of in the greater LA area, somewhat close to Beverly Hills, somewhat close to Hollywood. So I thought I'd go out and support the cause, obviously. And it began as, just in the streets protesting. We had some speakers in the beginning, and we walked very far. And on the way back, it turned out that the situation had actually gotten kind of intense because, I thought we were past the main crowd, but there was a situation where there was a brigade line of cops, and people were all kneeling down with their hands up. And we're like trying to get back to where we had biked over. I was with a friend, and as we continued back, it was really crazy. I mean, they had a couple cop cars that had been burned, and people, but it was largely peaceful. Like, what we saw was people, anytime somebody did something that was out of line or violent, everybody shouted them down and said, no, we're here to be peaceful. So I don't know how the cars got there in the beginning, but it seemed like by and large, people were behaving themselves totally fine. And what ended up happening was, as we were going back, they started unrolling just like car after car after car, like hundreds and hundreds of cops that started shooting tear gas. And so the people just scattered. I mean, I had been walking for about 3 hours before, so I was like, I should probably head out since I don't really have the ability to run right now if I need to. But it escalated pretty quickly. We're still kind of processing everything that happened, but it was really amazing because I think, it was very clear to everybody who was there and was posting videos that the protesters were vast majority peaceful, that we're, despite the fact that we are angry about the situation, which is totally justified, we weren't, acting out in a way that I would think is at all out of line. But then, the cops came and, they were, it's kind of hard to explain without knowing the geography of the area, but basically they just had been rolling in, and they had built up a force in a parking lot that was behind like a fence. So we hadn't seen them building up that force, and you could see them through the fence, and people were, kind of shouting at them. And what was incredible is I could see the cops through the fence, and they were literally like smiling and like jeering at people. So it was pretty, upsetting to see that the police force didn't seem to be there where they were concerned about, the state of the people or, keeping the peace. Because I did see a lot of behavior of cops that was, pretty rude, I would say, which is in a big way inciting a lot of the negative behavior. And there was, talk of like, who the heck, like, how did these cars get here? Because there were no cops to be found. So there was a whole lot of like crazy stuff happening, but it was a very intense experience. And I'm definitely really glad I went. If another one pops up, I'll definitely be there. But it was kind of amazing to see that, there wasn't really an effort from the cops to try and, I don't know, like talk or make peace. It was pretty straightforward, like people protesting, going to tear gas. And I'm hoping to now tune into what's happening in the news, because once they started firing tear gas, obviously we left and couldn't see what was happening. But I know I do have a couple friends who are still there, who are still posting, on their own social media about what's happening. So it's a pretty intense situation right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing that. I see Tamise has a comment. Tamise, you're back on the Liberty Show.
I guess I had to comment, I'm sorry, on the gentleman about keeping Trump in office. That never, ever will happen in my book. I would take the less of the two evils than to have that still stay in office. That man said last night, as if to say to shoot and kill. And that is one thing Biden might not be the best, but he's better than what we have now. I will never, ever vote and put him back in office. Never. And that's my last word on that.
Thank you, Tamisa. Tim, would you like to respond to that? Tim, do you want to respond?
Now, with respect, you don't have to vote for him.
Oh, no word, I won't.
Just don't implore me to.
Oh, you don't have to.
And don't implore other Black folks either. I have a question for you. And with respect, when Obama was in office, did your quality of life improve?
Yes, it did.
Has your quality of life, meaning income, your wealth,
yes,
how you're feeling, has your wealth decreased or increased while Trump has been in office?
No, it hasn't.
It hasn't decreased?
Since Trump been in there, ain't nothing it's been the same. What has he done? What has he done for Black people? What has Trump done for Black people? What have he done for Black people? What have he done for Blacks or brown people or poor people?
I'll tell you what he's done for me. I'll tell you. What he's done for Black people is he's revealed to all Black and brown people that politicians aren't to be trusted, whether they're Democrat or Republican.
And that include himself too. That include himself too. You can
but the great thing about Trump is that Trump shows you that he's a snake. Whereas the Democrats,
I don't need no snake up there. I don't need no snake. I don't need no snake up there. I don't need no snake.
Do you have, ma'am, with respect, is there anyone in your family who's been locked up for drugs?
No, sir, they haven't. I'm lucky.
Okay.
I'm the lucky one.
You are exceptionally blessed that you haven't experienced the snake that is biting.
You know, I mean, that's your opinion.
I applaud. It's not my opinion. It's fact. He is the architect of the Clinton. He's the architect of the Clinton crime bill, which is responsible for locking up Black men, Black women. That's Biden. That wasn't Trump. That was Clinton. That wasn't Trump. That was
you talking about stuff, sir. You talking about back in the 90s? Things had to be done. I mean, come on now. Let's be real.
Lady, I know you're not telling me that putting us on the plantation had to be done.
You on plantation? Still on the plantation? You ain't never got
caging us is that's exactly
still on the plantation, sir.
That
you
is
still on the plantation.
You are.
That's one thing I say about. You are one of the example of one of these. You are one of the example of some what Malcolm X talk about these house Negroes. You are one of them. One of these Negroes that don't think they don't get something. They think they don't get something. Don't get something. You are one of them, sir. You are. I'm sorry to call you out for what it is, baby. I am sorry. Sorry about that. But I would never, I would take Biden any day. I would take Biden any day. And that's one thing you will never take from me. You will never take my vote. I don't give a darn who you are. You will
both
never
of y'all
take that
are right, though.
Ma'am, you have broken my heart by calling me a house nigger.
Well, that's what you are, sir. I'm sorry. That's what you are.
Well, if this house nigger may respond,
don't respond.
I'd rather serve in the house of a master that tells me I'm a nigger than in the house of a master who tells me I'm somebody when he treats me like a nigger.
Oh my God.
So you keep pretending that you master's plaything, whereas the rest of us who know we the niggers will be about the business of changing our life. I'm not a Negro
both
woman.
y'all acting like dumb
woman.
niggas.
I'm not a Negro woman. I am a Black African woman. That's a difference.
There's no difference, though.
It's a difference. It is a difference. I still love
Negro come. Negro means Black, though.
I still
Negro means Black, lady. How are you a teacher? Ma'am,
your brother.
Ma'am, with respect.
Wow.
Ma'am, with respect. Ma'am, with respect, Negro. Ma'am, with respect, Negro comes from the word Negroid, which means to be Black. So unless you're not Black, you are indeed a Negro.
I am.
This is what I'm talking about. Niggers acting like they something other than a nigger.
I am an African American Black woman. There's a difference between a nigger and a nigger.
That's what he just said, though. There's no difference. The mindset is not different. There's no difference.
It is a difference. It is a difference.
There's no difference. We are
No,
all
it's
black
totally
people.
different.
We are all.
It
You
is
guys
a
are talking
difference.
about the
It's
same
different.
thing.
It's
You're not gonna argue with
it's a
somebody
difference.
that got a degree in this shit. We
You
all
got
the
them
same.
folks that got he
argue
wants to
with
run
Okay.
around with a degree. He
Hello,
want to run
Kevin.
around. Okay, let me
We're
tell
back on the Liberty Show.
Okay, bye,
But
bye.
no, I don't want to cut it off with some great discussion. But Dominique, would you like to make a comment?
I didn't mean to cut anybody off, but I just got really emotional. We are all the same people. All these white people gonna look at us the same way. What homeboy said is true. And what I don't know who was speaking at both parties who were speaking, and I respect both decisions, but we're all black and everybody's gonna be looked at as a Negro. That's all I gotta say. That's it.
Thank you so much. Guys, this has been an awesome show. We thank you so much. And just in closing, remember to go to our YouTube channel, The Liberty Show with Kevin Fortune, and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram so you can see what upcoming podcasts and topics are going to be on. We thank everyone for being on it. We're not upset or angry at anyone. We love heated discussions, and we love your opinion because as people of liberty, you own your opinions. But we just hope that you will take your, not so much your anger, but your energy and your passion, take it out into the world and the streets, and let's make this world a better place. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time on The Liberty Show. Good night.